The Atlanta skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Zuri Blake's penthouse office. From the 50th floor of Blake Tower, the city looked like a perfect miniature, orderly, gleaming, and entirely under her control. "The West Side Revival project will be your masterpiece," said Lawrence Chen, her CFO, sliding a leather portfolio across her glass desk. $500 million investment, projected $2 billion return over 5 years. Zuri opened the portfolio, examining the renderings of sleek high-rises, boutique storefronts, and manicured green spaces. The plan showed a complete transformation of Vine City, her childhood neighborhood. "We're calling it the Phoenix District," Lawrence continued, "rising from the ashes of urban decay into luxury living. The mayor's already on board. This puts you on the fast track for political connections when you're ready to run for office." Zuri traced her finger over the glossy images. At 30, she'd built Blake Developments into a $10 billion empire, transforming neglected urban areas into profitable luxury districts across the Southeast. Each success had taken her further from the girl who once lived in Vine City's crumbling apartments, watching her mother work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. "The community response?" she asked, her voice neutral and professional. Lawrence waved dismissively. "The usual noise. Some local organizer is rallying residents, but nothing we haven't handled before. We've already started acquiring properties. Most people are eager to sell." Zuri closed the portfolio. "I want to see it myself before we proceed." "Is that necessary? The team has—" "I grew up there, Lawrence. I need to see what we're working with." He looked surprised. Zuri rarely mentioned her background, preferring to let people assume she came from money. Her carefully constructed image, designer wardrobe, refined accent, art collection, revealed nothing of the girl who once wore secondhand clothes and did homework by candlelight during power outages. "Of course," Lawrence recovered quickly. "I'll arrange a tour with security." "No," Zuri said, standing. "I'll go alone." Vine City had changed less than she expected. The corner store where she'd bought penny candy now sold lottery tickets and vapes. The playground where she'd spent summers was still there, though the swings hung broken. Some buildings had been boarded up, others freshly painted in defiant bursts of color. Zuri had dressed down in jeans and a simple blouse, but she still felt conspicuous in her luxury sedan. She parked near her old apartment building and walked, letting memories surface with each step. The community garden was new, vegetables and flowers growing in raised beds where an abandoned lot had once collected trash. A mural covered the adjacent wall, vibrant portraits of neighborhood elders alongside children, with the words, "Roots run deep," arching above them. "Can I help you?" The deep voice startled her. Zuri turned to find a tall man watching her with narrowed eyes. He wore work clothes stained with paint, but his stance was confident, almost challenging. Recognition hit her like a physical blow. "Malik?" His expression shifted from suspicion to shock. "Zuri Blake? Is that really you?" Malik Rivers. Her childhood neighbor, the boy who'd shared his textbooks when she couldn't afford them, the teenager who'd organized their first community cleanup, the friend she'd left behind without a backward glance when her first real estate flip had given her the means to escape. "It's been a long time," she said, suddenly conscious of her designer watch, her perfect manicure. 13 years, he replied. "You look different." Before she could respond, a group of children ran up to Malik, tugging at his hands. "Mr. Rivers, we finished the compost like you showed us." His face softened as he praised their work. Zuri watched, remembering how he'd always been the natural leader of their childhood group, the one with big ideas and the determination to make them happen. "You're working with the community garden?" she asked when the children ran off. "I run the neighborhood coalition now. We've got the garden, after-school programs, senior services." His eyes hardened again. "We're also fighting to keep developers from pushing everyone out. But I guess you wouldn't know anything about that? Ms. Blake Developments." The accusation stung more than it should have. "You know who I am. Everyone here knows who you are. Your company's been sending representatives around, offering cash for properties, promising revitalization." He made air quotes around the word. Some people don't realize they're being offered pennies on the dollar for land that's about to skyrocket. We pay fair market value, Zuri said automatically. Fair? Malik laughed without humor. Ms. Winters, remember her? She taught us both in 3rd grade. She got offered $150,000 for her house. Sounds good until you realize she can't buy anything else in the city for that price. Where's she supposed to go? Away from her church, her doctor, her community? Zuri felt a flicker of discomfort. She'd built her career on identifying undervalued properties, transforming them, and selling to the highest bidders. It was business. Smart, legal business that had lifted her from poverty to unimaginable wealth. Development creates jobs, she said. Improves infrastructure, brings in services. For who? Malik interrupted. Not for the people who've lived here for generations. Not for the elders who held this community together when the city abandoned us. Not for the kids who need affordable homes when they grow up. A small crowd had gathered, watching their exchange. Zuri recognized some faces, older now, but familiar. People who had known her before she became the Buyback Queen, as Forbes had dubbed her in last month's cover story. You used to be one of us, Zuri, Malik said quietly. Now you're just another outsider coming to claim what isn't yours. The words hit like a slap. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Lawrence, probably wondering why she'd been gone so long. I have to go, she said, turning away from Malik's disappointed gaze. Of course you do, he called after her. Big meeting? Important people waiting? Just remember, while you're planning to erase us, we're still here, fighting to exist. Zuri walked back to her car, her designer heels clicking on the cracked sidewalk, feeling the weight of eyes on her back, and something heavier in her chest that she couldn't quite name. The community resistance is becoming problematic, Lawrence said at the board meeting the next day. This organizer, Malik Rivers, has been particularly effective at delaying our acquisitions. Zuri kept her expression neutral, though hearing Malik's name in her boardroom felt like worlds colliding. What's his angle? Asked Victor Harrington, their largest investor. Everyone has a price. We've made overtures, Lawrence replied. He's not interested in personal gain. It's ideological. Then discredit him, Victor said dismissively. Find something in his past, his finances. Everyone has secrets. Zuri's grip tightened on her pen. We're not in the business of character assassination, Mr. Harrington. Victor raised an eyebrow. We're in the business of making money, Ms. Blake. Sentimentality has no place in real estate. After the meeting, Zuri found herself drawn back to Vine City. This time, she wore a hoodie and jeans, her hair tucked under a cap, an outfit reminiscent of her teenage years. She parked several blocks away and walked, anonymous among the evening crowd. A community meeting was happening at the old church. Zuri slipped in the back, hood up, and took a seat in the last row. Malik stood at the front, pointing to maps and documents projected on a screen. Blake Developments isn't just buying individual properties, he was explaining. They're acquiring entire blocks through shell companies. Their plan isn't revitalization, it's replacement. He clicked to the next slide, her company's renderings of the Phoenix district. This is what they want to build where our homes stand. Luxury condos starting at $500,000. Boutique shops selling $200 jeans. Not one unit of affordable housing. Not one space designated for local businesses. Murmurs of anger rippled through the crowd. Ms. Winters, tell them what you were offered for your home, Malik prompted. An elderly woman stood. My husband built that house in 1972, raised 3 children there. They offered me $150,000 and acted like they were doing me a favor. And what did your appraiser say it's worth? Malik asked. Nearly twice that, she replied. But even at fair value, where would I go? This is my home. One by one, residents shared similar stories. Zuri listened, a growing unease spreading through her. These weren't just properties on a portfolio. They were lives, histories, communities. When the meeting ended, she slipped out before anyone could recognize her. But instead of returning to her penthouse, she drove to her grandmother's old house in a neighboring district, the one property she'd kept from her past, though she rarely visited. The small bungalow stood dark and empty. Zuri unlocked the door, breathing in the faint scent of her grandmother's rose potpourri that somehow lingered years after her death. She'd been raised here after her mother passed, learning resilience and pride from a woman who'd lived through segregation and still believed in the promise of community. In the attic, Zuri found boxes of her grandmother's papers. She'd been meaning to sort through them for years, but had always been too busy with the next deal, the next project. Now she began reading through decades of history, letters, photographs, newspaper clippings. Near the bottom of one box, she found a folder labeled Property Deeds. Inside was a surprise. Her grandmother had owned not just this house, but several parcels of land in Vine City, land that should have passed to Zuri upon her death. But Zuri had never known about these properties. How was that possible? She dug deeper, finding correspondence between her grandmother and James Whitfield, Zuri's first business partner, the man who had mentored her early career before she bought him out 5 years ago. The letters revealed a disturbing truth. James had known about the additional properties, but had kept them from Zuri, instead facilitating their sale to various development companies through complex legal maneuvers that had hidden the transactions from her. Properties that rightfully belonged to her had been stolen, and now, ironically, her own company was trying to acquire some of them again as part of the Phoenix District plan. Dawn was breaking when Zuri finally pieced it all together. She sat surrounded by papers, a new resolve hardening within her. This wasn't just business anymore. This was personal. For the next 2 weeks, Zuri lived a double life. By day, she continued as CEO, attending meetings and reviewing plans for the Phoenix District. By night, disguised in her hoodie, she attended community meetings, listening to residents' concerns and ideas. She also began a quiet investigation into her investors, particularly Victor Harrington, whose eagerness to discredit Malik had raised red flags. What she discovered shocked even her cynical business mind. Harrington's financial firm had been running a sophisticated predatory lending operation targeting elderly homeowners in several neighborhoods, including Vine City. They offered reverse mortgages with hidden clauses and balloon payments designed to force defaults, allowing them to seize properties at a fraction of their value. Many of the properties her company had fairly acquired had actually been obtained through Harrington's predatory schemes. The revelation made her physically ill. Meanwhile, Malik was getting closer to uncovering the truth himself. At a community meeting Zuri attended in disguise, he presented evidence of the predatory lending, though he hadn't yet connected it directly to Harrington or Blake developments. After the meeting, as people filed out, Malik approached her. "You've been to every meeting for 2 weeks," he said quietly. "Always in the back, always in that hoodie. Why?" Zuri hesitated, then slowly lowered her hood. The shock on his face would have been comical in any other circumstance. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, anger replacing surprise. "Spying for your company?" "No," she said. "I'm trying to understand what I've been part of." He studied her face, looking for deception. And I need to show you something, not here." Reluctantly, he followed her to her grandmother's house. There, surrounded by papers and evidence, Zuri explained everything. The stolen properties, Harrington's schemes, and her growing realization that the Phoenix District wasn't what she'd thought. "There's more," she said, pulling out newer documents she'd obtained through her corporate access. "The Phoenix District isn't just luxury housing and retail. The plans include a massive underground data center, officially for smart city infrastructure, but actually designed to collect and sell residents' data. That's why they need this specific location. The city's main fiber optic trunk lines run beneath it." Malik absorbed this, his expression shifting from skepticism to grim understanding. "So it's not just about real estate, it's surveillance capitalism." "With government cooperation," Zuri confirmed. "The mayor's office is involved. That's why they've been so supportive." "Why are you telling me this? You're implicating your own company." Zuri took a deep breath. "Because I built my company to create value, not to destroy communities. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. I've been so focused on proving I could succeed that I didn't question who I was becoming. Their eyes met, and for a moment she was 17 again, sitting on her grandmother's porch with Malik, dreaming of how they'd change the world. "Help me fix this," she said simply. The next month was the most challenging of Zuri's career. Working secretly with Malik, she gathered evidence against Harrington and the corrupt officials involved in the data center scheme. She also began developing an alternative plan for Vine City, one that would preserve the community while still allowing for economic growth. When she was ready, she called an emergency board meeting. "The Phoenix District project is canceled," she announced to stunned silence. "You can't be serious," Lawrence sputtered. "We've already invested millions in acquisitions." "Those acquisitions were based on fraudulent practices," Zuri replied, distributing folders containing evidence of Harrington's predatory lending scheme. "Furthermore, I've discovered that significant portions of the land were actually stolen from my own inheritance through fraud perpetrated by James Whitfield years ago." Victor Harrington's face had gone pale as he flipped through the documents. "These are private corporate matters." "They are criminal matters," Zuri corrected. "And they've been forwarded to the FBI and the State Attorney General's office this morning." The boardroom erupted in chaos. When order was finally restored, Zuri presented her alternative: the People's Blueprint. "Instead of displacing residents, we'll work with them, renovate existing structures, build affordable housing alongside market-rate units, create commercial spaces specifically for local businesses with subsidized rents and equity-sharing models." "This is corporate suicide," Victor snapped. "I'll have you removed as CEO." "You're welcome to try," Zuri replied calmly. "But before you call that vote, you should know that I've also provided evidence of your data mining scheme to federal regulators. Your choice, Victor. Walk away quietly or face indictment." 3 hours later, Zuri had survived a no-confidence vote, lost 2 board members including Harrington, and secured tentative approval for her new vision, albeit with a significantly reduced budget now that Harrington's investment was gone. That evening, she met Malik at the community garden. News of the canceled Phoenix district had already spread, though the full story hadn't yet broken. "You risked everything," he said, looking at her with new respect. "I reclaimed everything," she corrected. "My integrity, my connection to this place." She paused. "My grandmother always said wealth without purpose is poverty in disguise. I finally understand what she meant." Together, they walked through the neighborhood as sunset painted the buildings in gold. Residents who had once eyed her with suspicion now nodded in cautious acknowledgement. "The work is just beginning," Malik warned. "People won't trust Blake Developments overnight." "Then maybe it's time for a new name," Zuri mused. "Blake Community Partners, with actual community partners." She glanced at him. "Starting with you if you're interested." He raised an eyebrow. "Me? In corporate America?" "You helping transform corporate America," she countered. "Someone once told me that instead of erasing communities, we should be empowering them. Sounds like a business model worth building." As they reached the mural with roots run deep arched across the top, Zuri stopped, really seeing it for the first time. Among the portraits of neighborhood elders was her grandmother's face, smiling with quiet dignity. "She would have been proud of you," Malik said softly. "Not for the billions or the buildings, for coming back, for remembering who you are." Zuri touched the painted face gently. "The Buyback Queen," she murmured. "Maybe it's time to give back more than I buy." Above them, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, and below, the neighborhood lights came on one by one, each representing a home, a story, a life worth preserving. In that moment, standing between past and future, Zuri Blake finally felt truly wealthy.